Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Adobo and Avocados. My name is Marie Cruz and I don't have a really good voice today, so you have to bear with me. But today, yeah, I have the one and only.
Nicole van der Hoeven. My voice is fine, thank you very much. So I'm going to be picking up the slack for Marie today because you sound awful, and now
I know.
suddenly I feel bad for making you come on stream
It's
live.
all good. It's all good. I don't really feel like it's just my voice. Like I started having the cough over the weekend, but I've got lots of strepsils. I've got my decaf tea, so it's all good. The show must go on. We can continue.
Oh wow.
I'm more worried about the conference because I'm gonna be speaking this Thursday. So hopefully my voice is gonna be all good because that's gonna be in person.
Yeah, so talk about that. Where are you speaking and what are you speaking about?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned this on like during the last episode as well. But yep, I'm headed to Berlin, Germany again. I'll be
Your second
attending.
home at this
Yes,
point?
my second home. I'll be attending and I'll be speaking at TestJS Summit. So my talk is about holistic web performance with Grafana and K6. So I'm gonna be talking about why both lab and field data are important, and also a quick demo of how to integrate Grafana Faro as well as K6 browser. I'm still debating whether I'm gonna do a live demo because it's like you don't really know with like these conference if the Wi-Fi is gonna be good.
Yeah.
But I've got backup plan. I've got all the screenshots prepared just in case. But the goal is to do a live demo of how I can integrate Grafana Faro as well as write some K6 browser scripts. So we'll see.
Ooh, good luck on that.
Yeah.
Kind
But
of
yeah.
jealous that you're going back to Berlin though.
I'm not. But yeah, how about you? Do you still have any more conferences for this year or
No,
that's it? You're
I
finished?
I'm done. My last one was the Agile Testing Days one, and
Oh.
I'm actually pretty happy about that.
Yeah. All right. Well, what are we gonna talk about today? So why did we suddenly um did an episode on a Monday? Monday, well, not really Monday morning ish. Yeah.
Well, because you're so busy going back to your second home that we weren't going to be able to make it on the usual Wednesday slot.
Yeah.
And so we were like, well, let's get another one out before Christmas.
Yeah, and I think this is a topic that we've mentioned already during like previous episodes because it's a theme that has come up quite a few times. We talked about it during the last episode with Renata because building her personal brand essentially helped with her unemployment, and now she's found a new job. So yeah, I think it's just fair that we dedicate an entire episode about personal branding, how I guess people who want to build their personal brand, like how they can get started, what are the different ways, and what sort of stuff I guess to include if they're gonna
Yeah.
create their own website, if they're gonna do blogging or video. So there's a lot of forms. So it's great that yeah we're talking about personal brand.
Yeah, and it's something that's always front of mind for both of us because we've both shifted our careers from doing like hands-on testing or management in your case of testing to more of an advocacy role where your personal brand really matters, right? To
Yeah,
some degree, we were both hired because we already had a personal brand. But I
yeah.
guess like what does that mean to you to have a personal brand and how did you get one basically?
So what does it mean to me? So I think from my side it's really about how, so whenever, for example, whenever someone hears your name, like what's the first thing I guess that comes to their mind in terms of your professional work. So when we say like, I guess, because the first time, not really the first time, but like over time when I've gotten to know you, I've really come across your blog and then your YouTube channel. So I could tell by the different platforms where you're active, I could tell that, okay, Nicole is quite active in performance testing as well as Obsidian. She has a growing YouTube channel. So it shows to the community or even to hiring managers what sort of areas you, I guess, I don't want to use the word expert because I know
Yeah,
how that
yeah.
makes us feel, but I guess it shows people areas where we're quite passionate about in terms of sharing our knowledge and skills. So the first, I guess my first like how I got into it was around late 2019. I was creating some blog posts, and initially it was my manager at that time who has said, hey, maybe you could write some blog posts around how we have improved the automation strategy in like one of the previous projects that I'm working at. And during that point, I was thinking, okay, why don't I also create my own website where I can publish some blogs that initially it was all for um, like me remembering stuff so that I don't have to forget it in the future in case I need to reference back some pieces of code, some technologies that I know I'm gonna not use for like, or like that I know that I'm gonna use again for future projects. And so it started there. Like I've just started sharing weekly blog posts. The weekly blog posts turned, I guess, into meetups. So um, it just sort of started the momentum of getting recognized by the community as well. So whenever I publish, I guess, a new blog post, I share it to my socials, and then people will react to it. People will say, "Oh, hey, this was exactly the issue that I was stuck on. Thank you for writing about it." And so it just started from there, like just really me sharing my knowledge. And then maybe later I can talk more about on how I've um not r- on how I've, I guess, iterated upon the whole website, because it didn't really look like that initially. So I've added a lot of pieces like like
Yeah.
along the way. But yeah, like it really started in the form of weekly blogs. Um but how about yourself? Yeah, how did you start your personal brand?
So it's hard to say like when I actually started. Oh,
Oh,
I
your
don't know what
camera.
that is. This is a great thing to happen on a stream, right? But I am still here.
Yeah, your audio.
I'm just going to switch to the other camera for now and
There you go.
see what happens there.
Now we can see a
But
different angle.
yeah, that's totally intentional. Um, yeah, so with me, it's kind of difficult to say, like, yeah, it started at this point because it was kind of like, oh, I'm just doing, I don't think I ever had that point where I thought, I'm going to start a personal brand. Go.
Mm,
I
yeah.
never sat down and strategized, and I think that's partially because I just hate the idea of it. I actually
Mm.
hate the thought of a personal brand, and calling it that
Oh,
makes me feel, I don't
interesting.
know. Yeah, like I'm not a brand. I'm not I'm not anyone. I'm just a
Mm.
person. I'm just, I don't know. There is something about it that's just really icky to me.
Oh, can you expand a
Yeah.
bit more on that? Because I guess I probably didn't I didn't feel like having that I guess like feeling like the same way that you did, because I was already reading a lot of blogs from other people, and this is when I've also started, like I've joined Ministry of Testing community, and they have a channel there where it automatically populates depending on like, oh, there you are, you're back. Depending on like the people that have added their blogs. And so I was thinking, oh, hey, this person is writing topics about, this. And then that's when I thought, okay, maybe I can also do the same because I've already seen people from the community doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's weird because I never think that about other people. I don't
Yeah.
look at someone promoting their stuff and think, "Oh, why would they do that?" No, I'm like, "Oh, cool. I'm glad they did that so that now it's brought it to my attention."
Yeah.
But for some reason when it's me, I just have this thing where I don't want to talk about myself. I don't want to be seen as promoting myself, or I don't want to be too self-centered. I
Mm,
feel like, who am I anyway? It's the whole imposter syndrome of,
mm.
I'm not good enough. I don't know enough. Why in the world am I even talking about what I'm doing, thinking that anybody cares?
Yeah. That's interesting. Like there's really two sides to it because when I was writing all the initial blog posts, it was really about um trying to remember things. Like for example, I was reading an old blog post that I did in terms of testing some AWS lambdas, and I was like, oh yeah. I don't remember doing it now, but then when I read the blog post, I'm like, oh yeah, this is how I've done it. And it was
Yeah.
more like for me to remember things, not really for me to talk about, hey, these are the things that I'm good at, or these are, I guess, the technologies that I'm quite like skilled at. It was more really to reflect or to remember the things that I've done at previous projects, because I still have some like ex colleagues in the past who have messaged me, and then they will say, hey, I was typing something about Cypress iframes and then your blog post came up, so thank you for that. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's how I interpret the whole personal brand. Like whenever, I guess, someone hears the name, I don't know, Cypress, or like in your case, Obsidian, or K6, then maybe one of the first few names that they come to think about is, oh yeah, I've seen this person write certain topics about this post. So that builds up the whole personal brand concept to me. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that if I had thought about it from that perspective, that I would have been more okay with it.
Mm.
But yeah, in the beginning I kind of thought, oh, you know, unless you feel like you're an expert, you
Yeah.
shouldn't talk about anything, you shouldn't write about anything.
Yeah.
And I was afraid of being in public and people maybe critiquing me.
Mm,
And
yeah.
I think the that shift was what caused me to start saying things. I don't think there was one event that kind of triggered it, but at some point I did just sort of think, well, I don't have to say that I'm an expert. In fact, I can explicitly say that I'm not an expert,
Yeah.
and that's still okay. Like, my voice is still welcome and valuable even if I'm not the world's foremost expert in something. And you know, the chances that anyone would be the world's foremost expert in anything, that's pretty slim, right? There's
Yeah.
only one person who could be that in the world, and even that judgment is qualitative.
Yeah.
So I think that I was thinking of writing, or doing, having some sort of intentional plan around the content that I was creating, had to be about being on the bleeding edge, like leading
Mhm.
the way. And it's like, no, you can just talk about where you've been, because
Yeah.
the person who hasn't even started that journey is still going to find that useful.
Yeah. That was one of the like few advices that I've seen people who have established their personal brand. So they provided like advices like, oh, if you're thinking of creating some blog posts, or writing some topics that other people have already written, it's fine. Like totally go ahead with it, because even though there's already, I guess, like different articles that are covering the same topic, the article or the blog post that you're going to publish, it's still coming from your perspective. So the way you write might be different. Um, it will still reach a certain number of people. And so when I was writing the initial blog post, I thought that it has to be topics that um, not a lot of people have written. But then over time, I've started to write more beginner content because I realized that okay, it's fine that there are other topics related already to this particular area, but because I still have my own social connections, then they can still benefit from me sharing that particular topic.
Yeah. And that is one of the benefits of having a personal brand is actually being able to help people. Because
Mm-hmm.
when people know you for something, when they know what you like, which is basically what a personal brand is, them associating some topics with you and recognizing you as someone who speaks on those topics,
Yeah.
then it's easier for them to find help when they want help on that specific thing. And that was definitely one of the appeals for me, is that when you carve out a little niche for yourself, a little space for yourself on the internet, you really get to widen your network and you meet a lot of cool people and people who share the same interests as you in that way.
Yeah. And I think like we could also talk about that that's really one of the key things in terms of like how we met, because I think with the
Yeah.
automation guild, like I I was speaking there and then you were also speaking in there as well, and it just sort of aligned, and then we connected over Twitter, and then we realized actually we have few things in common. Because if, for example, I haven't written anything about testing, or I've never really applied to any of the conferences, I don't think that we're gonna end up meeting. So personal
Yeah.
brand really helps in building that connection. And in most cases, it can really help you land new opportunities. Like I've already mentioned with Renata, that's how she got her job. And I think with how we got our jobs as well, because I remember for the K6 browser developer advocate role, as part of like the interview process, I just asked, "Hey, aren't you all gonna ask me um, really hard interview questions?" And then I remember, I don't know if it was you or if it was Pepe at that time, but I remember the response was, "It's okay. We've already seen your work."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there is that element of having a personal brand where when what you know is so publicly cataloged, people don't really feel the need to test you on it. Because
Mm,
someone who has written so much about a topic, and then, if maybe you've also watched them speak live about it,
yeah.
then it's kind of like, I already know that you can do that. So that's not actually what I want to ask you about. It's
Yeah.
it's like a portfolio. In
Yeah.
fact, I think it's a lot more honest and open than a CV, because
Yeah.
anyone can say anything on a CV.
Yeah.
But when you show, like, here is all the stuff that I've written on this topic, that's incontrovertible true proof that, one, you are interested enough in it and passionate enough to create that stuff, and two, you probably know what you're talking about. And
Yeah.
if you don't, then someone could very quickly verify that by reading what you've
Yeah.
written.
That's exactly what I was gonna say as well. Because there's not, I'm not saying everyone, but obviously there's people who have said that, hey, I've done this as part of my previous project, but then when you actually work with this person, you're like, I thought
Did you
you
really?
yeah, I
Yeah.
thought you've added this. So having concrete evidences of the pieces that you've actually mentioned as part of your CV is really gonna benefit you all the way.
Yeah. It's like showing, not telling.
Yeah.
CVs are about telling, but having a personal brand and being able to show people proof of what you have done, that's like
Mhm.
that's showing. That's that makes it a lot easier because you can skip all of the formalities of, oh, do you have references, or
Yeah.
people can just see for themselves and decide.
Yeah.
And I think the more you have out there, the better an idea people will have of how you like to work or how you think. And, maybe some people will be turned off by that if they don't mesh well with your communication style, but that's
Mhm.
probably a good thing. It saved you an interview, like
Yeah.
having to prepare for an interview that probably wouldn't have worked anyway.
Yeah. I think the like in terms of because now we're talking about the benefits. I think for me the really main benefit was all the connections I made, and also the people that I really looked up to when I was first starting. When I meet them in person or whenever there's like
Yeah.
conferences, and even though you haven't spoken, or you haven't really built that connection, but then when you meet those people in person, it's like, hey, I know you've done this work about this particular topic. It's like with Lina. um
Yeah.
I know her work, but I haven't really had the chance to um have a conversation with her. And then when we had that episode, and then when we met in person, it was just so easy to talk with her, because there's some like built foundation already in terms of the respect, and um like in like the views that she has in terms of like professional work and such. So there's already that foundation that it's just so easy to share views with her. So it's really the connection forming. I guess for me, that's the main benefit.
Yeah, I definitely agree that that's the primary one. But also, I think that being out there, being public about what I like and what I'm learning is has also helped me learn faster. Because
Mm-hmm.
I think if I just went to someone and I was like, "Hey, tell me everything you know about distributed tracing."
Mm-hmm.
They'd be like, "Oh, okay, well, I don't know where to start." And it would feel like a chore. Like if someone said that to me about performance testing, it's like, "What do you mean everything? I can't tell you everything. Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
a teacher and I don't have the time to hold your hand through this." So I haven't it's you don't really get many people who are like, "Oh yeah, okay, come sit with me and we'll talk for days about this topic." What I've
Yeah.
found more useful, and this is like I forget. There's a law for this. I forgot what it's called, but the law is if you want an answer on the internet, the way that
Mm-hmm.
you get that is not by asking a question. It's by posting the wrong answer. And
Ah.
so sometimes putting something out there, even if you know it's wrong, is
Mm-hmm.
still a lot easier than just asking people for an answer.
Yeah.
And I think it's also like you have something to start with. So, what I will do a lot is I publish a lot of my notes online, even if they're super not fully fleshed out. I will still publish it, and then I'll take the link and I'll send it to one of our colleagues. I have done this quite a few times with our colleague developer advocate, also Paul Baylog,
Yeah.
and I'll be like, "Hey, am I thinking about instrumentation the right way?
Yeah.
This is how I'm sort of categorizing it." And it's like very specific. It's not just, "Hey, tell me about instrumentation." It's
Mm-hmm.
like, "No, is are these categories correct?" I'm sort of separating them in terms of source and binary. Does that make sense? I just read that on the internet. And he's like, "Yeah, I think that makes sense." And or sometimes it's like, "No, you kind of missed this other one." Um, I do this with a lot of people, and it's good because it kind of focuses their attention on smaller things.
Yeah. I really like that aspect, because I haven't done it much lately in terms of posting everything that I've learned, because I think lately is always the end product. But when I was starting to learn about accessibility, one of the few things that I did was I participated in this 30 days of accessibility testing challenge that Ministry of Testing has created. And that really solidified some of my understanding. So I posted like a summary of the things that I've done each day, the notes that I've done, and then it actually inspired a couple of people from the community to do the same as well. Because when you share that you don't know something about a specific
Yeah.
topic, then it makes it easier for other people to also do the same. And then they can learn about that particular topic as well. And that's why when people say that I'm an accessibility expert, I really cringe because I'm an advocate for it, but I'm definitely not an expert. I've done talks about accessibility. I have a course about accessibility, but by no means. It's just all the things that I've learned on, like the journey that I was like on. But there's still a lot of stuff that I don't know. And that's okay because knowing everything about a specific topic is really gonna be hard.
Yeah. And one thing that has been really useful too is like when I was first getting into observability and like DevOps and stuff. Let me add this. These are my notes on tools, different tools for operations, just like platform engineering. And these were this was my attempt to kind of figure out all of these different tools that I didn't know what they meant and how to actually separate them. So I asked our colleague Danielle Gonzalez
Mhm.
Lopez to
Yeah.
kind of help me come up with these things, and I he significantly helped me. But it's even things like, oh, when you talk about automation and configuration, there's some that are config focused and some that are infra focused. That's the sort of nuance that I would not have thought of and I did not think of
Yeah.
on my own. So even
Yeah.
on the observability tools front, he's like, no, it's not just logs, traces, and metrics. Some are about ingesting, and then there's instrumentation, which isn't all the same thing. And it's
Mm.
like, oh, this is like a map of what I need to learn,
Yeah.
you know? And I find that really useful. But it's only because I put something out there and he's like, yeah, this doesn't really cut it. Like, great. That means
Yeah.
you can tell me what does.
Yeah. Like getting that constructive feedback as well is really important because there's one example like related to our Grafana documentation now that K6 documentation has moved to Grafana documentation. And um I created this pull request to add an example to measure like custom metrics, which is something new that I've just learned. And I learned that from the episode that we did with John Hill.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
added that example, and then someone from the community said, "Hey, that's actually awesome, but I've noticed you've forgotten to pass the parameter to set the trend to a time-based metrics." Because I realized that when you print the the logs as part of the summary output, it doesn't have like the seconds. It's just
Yeah.
a like numeric value, so it should be a time base. So it's really good because when you share to the community that hey, we've actually updated this example, then there's gonna be people like other people who will use that as well. And if they see that something's missing, then they will also contribute. So it's really a great way to get feedback as well.
Yeah. And maybe we should talk about like what exactly it means. What are because we've talked about videos and conferences. I mean, there's a
Mm,
lot of different
yeah,
ways that someone can start. But if someone were starting from zero, what
yeah,
would you recommend? I don't know. Like we haven't really talked about this, so maybe we have different
yeah.
ideas of where we would recommend people start.
Yeah, I guess the first thing is to pick which platform you're going to create or post your um like if I guess in terms of like platform first, like I guess if I step back, the first thing that I'm gonna suggest is decide which type of not really advocacy, but decide which type of activity you would like to start. If it's blogging, if it's video creation, because if it's blogs, then you're gonna have to either use like your own like, I guess, like static generator, or you can use either WordPress or Wix as well if you just really want to get started with the writing. So there's a lot of other platforms out there that are like totally built, and you can just customize it. So if you're gonna focus on the blogs, then the first thing is really, I guess, find like a domain that you're gonna stick with. And that's really important because I had to change my domain as well. um and there's a lot of like domain registration service that you can use. I use GoDaddy for mine, but there's a bunch of others out there. So I guess the first thing is to think about what your domain is going to be. Or if you want to do that later, then there's other platforms like Medium. But I guess now with Medium, you also have to consider that people have to be a member of that. Like, it's not publicly available now like it used to be. So you have to consider, hey, if you're gonna write posts there, then there's a chance that not a lot of people will read that post. And then after you've decided on that, then, like, in terms of the topics, really come up, I guess, with the plan in terms of like how frequent you want to post, what topics you want to write about. Think of like different categories, because it's really also great to diversify the content. Like, it's good to stick with one topic, but then if you run out of like topics to discuss, then you can also maybe do a weekly review or a monthly review, or you could also do things like, hey, these are the stuff that I learned today or this week, or it could even be book reviews. So there's a lot of other areas that you can also cover. But that's if you're gonna start writing. um I'll leave the video content creation to you because that's your forte.
I think it's very important to think about what you naturally gravitate towards, because if you think like, oh, to in order to get any influence, then you need to write, and really you're not really a writer. If you're like more of a video person or an audio person, it's not going to work really well. You're If you're just forcing yourself into a box, it's not going to be enjoyable. So pick a platform that really you gravitate towards anyway, that you probably already hang out on, and then also consider where the people that you find interesting, where do you find them? Because if you go to Facebook, for example, that there's a certain demographic that uses Facebook, and if that's who you want to talk to, then it makes all the sense in the world for you to go there.
Yeah.
And I do think I like what you were saying about naming, because it seems so obvious to people that you should just use your name. But you and I both took our husbands' names. I still have my husband's name. And, that I didn't really think this wasn't a choice. It didn't occur to me when I took it that, like, I was going to have that associated with me forever. And what
Mhm.
happens if you separate? Well, I
Mhm.
didn't really think that far, and I'm betting you didn't either.
Yeah. So changing that domain name, because like I still receive messages from, I think I got one just couple of weeks ago, because he was asking about a Cypress question, and then he also noticed, hey, I've noticed that if I type your previous domain, it's just redirecting somewhere. So that's one of the things, like, because I think most people will, yeah, have their names as their domain, but you know unexpected things do happen, so you need to have a plan as to, okay, what will you do if you have to change the domain, because there's a lot of stuff that's gonna get impacted, like SEO, the search ranking, etc. So it takes a while to start to build that up again, because one of the things that I guess you have to set up if you really want to check how many people are in your website is the Google Analytics. So that's something that you just need to keep in mind, that if you're changing domains, it might take some time for the number of traffic to go back to the previous trend.
So I think that it might be easier, depending on what people are interested in, if they just think about a social network first, because if you
Mm,
jump into creating a site, it's like it feels like a heavy lift, and then what do you do with it? There's like it's easier when someone else is hosting it and you're just joining. Like a single post on LinkedIn or whatever you're using, it doesn't feel like a lot. It's just a
yeah,
comment. And you
yeah,
could that could even be about what you're doing. It doesn't have to be like, I think that all testers should do this. It can just be like, hey, I did this today. And no one can argue with that. And that
yeah,
feels like a lot less daunting. So I
yeah,
would think a social network. I
yeah,
actually would not suggest you start with YouTube
mm,
because I think it's good for content. It's not
yeah,
great as a social network.
uh-huh.
You don't there's no direct messaging. So the only way that you can talk to people there is if they also have a YouTube
YouTube
channel
channel, yeah,
and they post something, then you can post on that. There's no privacy. And so I also feel like videos are a heavy lift. It
yeah,
takes a lot of time to even film a video and then
yeah.
to learn to edit. It's even, I think, more difficult than writing a blog post.
Yeah. Maybe we can talk about this later. So I know with videos, there's also different types of, I guess, content creation. Like the way that we're doing now, it's just a really informal kind of chat. So I guess that's also one aspect of the video creation. It doesn't have to be super polished, like most videos that we see are super edited, but then there's still other videos where it's just okay, like a conversation between two friends, like for example this
Yeah.
type of setting. So yeah, we can expand about that.
Yeah. Well, we can also talk about this is a note of mine that I created for myself, really, and I put it in the description as well. So these are some things that I've found useful. So if you're looking for, a domain registrar, there are a bunch of links here, and then site generators and
Yeah,
hosting, and depends on whether or not you want a static generator sort of thing or an all-in-one platform that does everything for you,
yeah,
and you can go down the list. So I'll just leave that in the description because
yeah,
I this
definitely.
was something that I had to research for myself too.
Yeah, yeah. So if we go back to the blogging um platform, because there's really, I guess, like two directions that people can take. There's the static site generator, like I think you're using Hugo, isn't it? Or you
Yes.
you you sign up to WordPress or Wix and then let them, I guess, do the bunch of the setup for you. So if you're starting your blogging journey, which would you recommend to, I guess, new people who want to, yeah, start building their content? Would you recommend the Yugo way, or would you recommend the WordPress or Wix way?
Whatever they're going to be more comfortable with, whatever they're going to
Your
be able to
choice.
keep up with. Some
Yeah.
people, like, I think it would be easier to have like a WYSIWYG sort of platform.
Yeah.
And in that way, I would say, Squarespace
Oh yeah.
Squarespace or Wix. Is
Yeah.
that what you use?
Yeah.
But for example, at work, we use a static site generator. So if it's possible that someone might already be comfortable
Yeah.
with that and just want to apply the same thing personally. So
Yeah.
maybe we should show our sites actually because they're different.
Yeah. Do you want to go first? Yeah.
Sure, I can share that. So I went the Hugo route, and this is what it looks like. Very basic. It's NicoleVanderhoeven.com. But it is also mine. Like it's very simple. There's nothing flashy about it. And I always have my last video there. And then I use this as my home for everything on the internet. So
Yeah.
anything that I do, so that could be like this podcast that I just did with Lina, it
Yeah.
links out to somewhere else. So this is no longer on my site, but it's like a record that like, hey, I did this at this point.
Yeah.
And then some of them, are
Mm.
actually videos. Some of them are presentations or talks that I did, and then there's also bits where you can find the slides there. So everything that I do is going to be here. So if people want to know what I'm up to, then this
Yeah.
is the home for it.
Yeah.
And I think it's really useful, like when you're trying to see how interested someone is in a topic. It's like, for example, these are the things that I did in 2023. So it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I've been making stuff for a while. Is it good stuff? Well, you're gonna have to decide that for yourself. I
Yeah.
also look to my notes, and I talked about publishing my notes,
Yeah.
and this is what it looks like. I use Obsidian Publish for it, and this is like for work and play. So, some things about gaming even, but also about work. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like having your own wiki, right?
Your
And
notes have been a lifesaver.
really, you
But
use it
yeah,
too?
when I was well, I think it was with the K6 browser. I can't remember, but there was a topic that I was searching and then your notes came. I'm like, "Oh, hey, this is Nicole's."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
I
here are
think it's
some
this one.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then I didn't really I should really put more in there
Yeah.
actually.
But
Um,
it's really helpful. Like I don't know if you could see how many hits you get as part of Google Analytics.
yeah, I can as well. I actually use something else called plausible analytics
Mm.
because they're more privacy
Hmm.
focused, and
Yeah.
I actually heavily recommend them too. Yeah,
Nice.
I use them and I pay for them, and it's European, so GDPR friendly and all that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so going back to my site, I also have a work page, which is effectively like a CV of what I'm doing now, where
Mm.
I've worked, and a little bit about what I did for each one, but also current project. So this is like recurring things that I'm working on. Some of it is code or videos, or I manage a community on Mastodon, and then
Yeah.
different topics as well. So this is like, here's where you can find me. And then there's also speaking engagements. I think that if you're interested in speaking, I think
Yeah.
you should have a list of all of the things that you've done,
Yeah.
so people can click on it, and ideally they would have a link to the slides, and
Yeah.
here are some photos, and maybe a link to a video if you have that.
It's also really useful, like especially if you're applying to speak to conferences where like some like not all conferences but some conferences they have a field where hey, if you've spoken at previous conferences, share the link with us. So I've also done like a similar format, but like I really find it useful because if conference like organizers, if they want to know more about me, then I just add a link to, hey, I've done a talk about this, or you can find all of my past events here. So at least they have like a bird's eye view as well of the talks that I've done.
Yeah. And one thing that I really hate is when you speak at a conference, sometimes they don't give you your own video. And I understand
Yeah.
why they wouldn't want you to make all of the videos available, but I
Yeah.
do always try to do something like maybe I'll record a version of me practicing the talk or
Yeah.
something, just to be like, hey, I did this, here's proof, even
Yeah.
if it wasn't, the live version of it. I also have gear because people always ask me what I'm using. So it's like, here's everything that I use and all the links for all the things.
Yeah.
Ethics. I have an ethics statement. So this is because I'm a content creator, this is like my stance on when do I accept a sponsorship, or when
Mm.
do I promote a product or a service. It's like, here are the things that I'm going to accept. Here are the things that I have to do. It's like I'm always going to clearly spell it out if I do that. Here are like requirements for me, before I'll accept anything. And then even things like, hey, in my communities, they're mine. That's not a democracy. I am going to block you or delete you or reject your comments if you're, being a jerk, basically.
Oh, yeah. I should add
And
this
that's
as
just,
well. Yeah, this is a really good point.
yeah, it's like a line in the sand. Like, hey, this isn't
Yeah.
personal.
It's you setting
I'm
your
not doing this for
boundaries, right?
you. Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
this is what I do for everyone. This is about
Mm.
me. And then, of course, like a link to my Obsidian course and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What about you?
Let's try. So,
Because you went a very different route from
yeah.
me.
So I just really wanted to get something up and running. So I chose the Wix way. And in terms of like the format, I guess there's some like similarities as well, but in terms of like the main or the homepage that they see, like there's some buttons here that like, or if you want to read my blog straight away, then they can just click here, or they can click here as well. Or because I've also signed up as a mentor at Mentor Cruise, so if they are looking for a mentor, like I've added a link here as well in case some people are interested. And in terms of the blog, so I've just added like lately, I have to admit it's been like monthly reviews. But for example, I was trying to learn about chaos engineering, so I wrote a post about that. I also talked about things like the psychology of waiting, so you could see that there's some, I guess, variety of topics that I have been focused lately, whereas like right at the beginning, it's really more about, for example, like really technical topics like using AWS, SNS, and CloudWatch API for test automation, using tags to filter your Cypress tests, Git tutorials, a lot of, yeah, like Cypress. And that's when I was really starting to, I guess, be more known in terms of like the Cyprus space, because this led me to apply to be a Cyprus ambassador. So I actually sent them like a few links of the different articles that I've written, and they saw some of the posts that I've done, and they're like, okay, yep, these are really great. You'll be a great ambassador. So it's a really helpful way to share to someone, or like for example, in our case, we have the K6 and Grafana Champions program, and our champions now have also been doing a same, I guess, format where in terms of their evidences, we looked at the content that they have created about a specific topic. I this is something that I've done recently because I've realized that I've also posted like articles that are external from my site. So anything that I publish, I guess as part of like third platform, I've also added it here so that people can also have a look at, hey, this person has also written about this particular topic but on a different site. So I've just added it here. And then
I do
courses.
have something to say about that one
Yeah.
because I had the unfortunate situation where I was
Mm,
doing the same thing. I was linking to a place that I had written a lot of content,
yeah.
and then that company basically folded, was acquired, moved to another place,
Yeah.
and it was no longer relevant. And that's fine. Like, I'm okay with that happening. Of course, it wasn't relevant anymore. But
Yeah.
at the same time, I'm like, I wish that I had had that, because it's still something that I did. And
Yeah.
rather than it just be gone, what I've been doing is I repost everything that I post elsewhere, but then I say, like, oh, it was originally posted here, so they still get the SEO or whatever. Like, I
Yeah.
don't want that. I just want a record that I did it
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Because I guess that's the same case from my side. Like, I also just want a record of, hey, I've written this as well. And like for me, the one way for me to keep track of that is, yeah, to just add all the different stuff that I've done, like externally, and then just, yeah, link it from my personal site as well. And then I've got like courses that are available. So if there are people who want to learn about Cypress or want to learn about TAU, then they can access it here. Workshops is just something that I do on my free time. So if people are interested to do about or to learn about Cypress or to learn about accessibility, then they can contact me directly. And our
Your
Adobo
graphic design
Avocados,
is so cute.
that is Canva. And then Adobo and Avocado, so I do need to update
Nice.
this. But I've added all the episodes here. And then this is the event section. So yeah, it's in a couple of days. So and then all the previous past events. So at
Cool.
least I have a portfolio of the stuff that I've done. And it's not just about, I guess, like the video or the conferences. So any like podcast appearances as well, like same as you. I just added here as part of the past events. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it can be daunting for someone to look at these
Yeah.
and think, "Oh no, I have to do all of this." And I mean, this is just like the last iteration, right? Cuz
Yeah.
I know I started with just a single page that
Yeah.
was just like, "Here's who I am, here's like what I do, where I live, contact me here." And that was it. I think
Yeah.
that was the most basic one that I started with. And even that is already like an online calling card. So
Yeah.
I thought that that was already useful, and then I kind of built out from there. Was it the same for you?
Yeah, like that, like the site that I showed, it definitely didn't look like that. The first iteration, I think the first iteration, it just really focused on the blogs front. So I just started to build the portfolio from that area like every week. So my aim during that time was to write a new topic every week. It's probably not as realistic now because I also have other things, but during that time, because I have a lot of topics that I want to talk about, so I built a backlog of, hey, okay, this week I'm gonna spend like a couple of hours to write about this. Okay, and the next week I'll do the same thing. So we already start from scratch, and it's just really how you be consistent with it. But the other way that we haven't mentioned yet, which I also find useful, so if you're writing, I guess, more on the technical side front, is to make sure that you have a GitHub project linked to it. Because you can also add that to your CV that um, you've created a sample project, and then from your blog post you can also link the full repo so that it's also easier for people to have a look at the code that you've done rather than follow it in terms of like copy and paste. They can just have the repo like provided to them.
So what are the platforms that you've decided to invest in? Because I think that was one of the difficult things for me where,
Mhm.
you can't do it all. There's so many
Yeah.
social networks, and if you I mean, unless you're a team of people, you're
Yeah.
not going to be able to be active on everything.
Yeah, it's really hard nowadays. So I used to be really active over at Twitter, but it's really dead now. So I just really share the social, not really the social stuff, but I just really share the stuff that I've done at LinkedIn. Although I still do posts from time to time like at Twitter, so I share, but it's really not the same as it used to be. And then I think just LinkedIn and Twitter for me, because I don't have Mastodon yet. I know you're gonna you're gonna encourage me to. Yeah.
Yeah. I also was on Twitter, but I did switch to Mastodon, and I'm heavily invested because I own and manage my own
Yeah.
instance, and it is for the personal knowledge management community, so it's a little
Yeah.
bit different. But on Mastodon, you can follow anyone that's also on Mastodon.
Yeah.
So I would say I'm probably heaviest on YouTube. That's
Yeah.
the one that I like. Most of my content is on YouTube, and then I'd say maybe Mastodon next, and then LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
So those 3 are the ones that, like, I'm usually there. Those are the kind of free public
Mm.
communities. But in terms of creating content, I would also have to include Obsidian Publish because I have enough notes there that it is its own form, and I
Yeah,
take notes every day. Actually, that would probably be the first if we're counting content and not just social networks. I think Obsidian Publish would be number 1 for me because I
yeah,
have, like, 5,000 notes on there about
yeah,
a variety of topics.
yeah,
So, yeah, I think it's important to talk about which one you're going to go all in on, and it isn't a great idea to just be like, "Yes, I'm going to do all
yeah.
of those."
You're
Just
gonna be
start with
burned out
one.
after. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the one thing that you have to keep in mind is you really need to be consistent to really build your portfolio. It's not gonna happen just I guess one day or a few days. It takes time. And so if you're gonna invest in all of the platforms, all of the different ways to share your knowledge, it's gonna be hard work because this is gonna be outside your day work as well. So how you manage your time outside will be impacted by how many um ways of contributing you're gonna decide on. So you really just probably want to stick to one, and then if you're comfortable, like you said, if you want to start video creation afterwards, then you can. But like you really have to research a lot, you really have to plan because it takes time. And I've done a couple of videos as well, and I don't know how you do it because the video editing, the content, like thinking what to talk about, it's a lot. And it's okay if they're gonna do like this format where, yeah, we're doing this conversation. But if it's the other video content creation where, yeah, there's lots of editing involved, like maybe even demos, then yeah, it takes some time.
Yeah, for sure. So if someone were starting off right now with nothing,
Mm.
what would you tell them? What's your tip?
Um, just just start small and just do it. I guess that will be my main advice. Like find one platform, be consistent with it, and if you do decide to migrate to another way of sharing your knowledge, then that's totally fine because um you just need to iterate, I guess, in terms of the topics that you're gonna discuss, the platform that you're gonna choose, but you really need to make sure that you have a plan. If you don't know what sort of topics to write about, just really lean from your experience because that's really something that people can't take away from you. And there's different ways of, I guess, sharing your knowledge, not just one. Just because writing and video content are the most popular ones doesn't mean that you have to do it. If you're more comfortable in, I don't know, answering posts from community forums, then that's also one way of building your personal brand. Because I know we have accepted champions as part of K6 and Grafana who have been focused in terms of their advocacy, that yeah, they're gonna focus in helping the community, and that's their contribution, and that's still counted because we were able to recognize their contributions. So whichever um whichever platform or whichever type of knowledge sharing that you're gonna decide on, really start small and try to build a consistent habit out of it. How about you?
Yeah. I think I my biggest thing was I really had those limiting beliefs that
Mm,
I have to be really good at something before I
yeah.
start talking. And so I think my tip would be to reframe that, not think of it as self-promotion, think of it as learning in public.
Yeah.
Because I think those are two different things, and one is the learning in public is way less daunting and intimidating because nobody would shame you for learning, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be creating content like this big thing. It can just be like, um today I learned that, whatever, like it could be a coding thing, or today I heard about this new tool and
Yeah.
apparently it can do this thing, or
Yeah.
here's how to use K6 browser, how to install, even just like things like that.
Yeah.
And I do that quite a bit on Mastodon, and I do like a hashtag TIL, today
Yeah.
I learned. And that's something that nobody can get mad at you about, because
Yeah.
you're not saying you're an expert, you're just saying you learned it. But
Yeah.
that's already building a portfolio of where you've been,
Yeah.
so I think that that would have been a really useful reframe for me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a solid advice. Great.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, I think that's it for today's episode. Hopefully, if there are people who are interested, then hopefully we have provided a bunch of knowledge that you can all start to consume. And if you're scared of doing it, don't. There's seriously a lot of people will benefit from all the knowledge that you have, because even though I think I've said this already, but even though there's similar contents out there and you don't want to write about that particular topic because some other person has already written it, no, just share your knowledge and frame it from your perspective, and just don't be scared, and your future self will really thank you for that. Amazing.
totally agree.
Right. Well, that is it for today's episode. Thank you, Nicole, for joining me,
Thank
even
you.
though my voice
Yeah,
is
I feel
really
so
bad.
bad for you.
But yeah,
Sorry about that.
hopefully, next week I think we're back with another
Oh, yeah.
guest. And yeah, we're gonna see you next week. But that is it for today. Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye.